application, how much in common do owner and vet have? I would say that not much. Besides that both the owner and the veterinarian have the first name and the last name, they don't have anything in common. This doesn't make for a proper inheritance hierarchy. So I would say that this class is just an accidental complexity that has crept into our project. So what we will do now, we will remove it. We will execute a push members down refactoring. So we will push all the fields and methods down the stack. Let's do that, and let's remove this class. Okay, so one off. But we have some more objects there that we are not sure what they're doing. For example, we have vet and vets. Probably vets are some kind of a collection of veterinarians, but what are they doing here? What they are doing in the model? I'm not sure. I'm unable to tell looking only at those classes. So again, I have to go to the implementation level. And here I have a Java document that says something useful, at least. And it says that this is part of the marshalling infrastructure. So probably it's being used only in the presentation layer. Let's verify it. Let's take a look at the usages of this class, and indeed, besides the config, it's only being used in a controller. So let's move it to where it belongs. Let's move it to that controller. And one more thing that I'm not sure what is doing here, what is the purpose of it, is the specialty class. Anyone can tell? Okay, we were not able to instantly tell what the purpose of this class is, and we should be able to do this given the name of the class and the context it's in. So let's take a look at the implementation, and this is the specialty of a veterinarian. So we will deal with this problem that we weren't able to tell that instantly later on. But right now, I would like to go back to the technical entities. As you can probably guess, the base entity is just a superclass that holds the artificial identity of our entities. So I would say it's not related to domain. I would move it to infrastructure. So let's do that. And we also have a named entity here. And if we take a look at the implementation, the only thing that this class does, it defines the name field and the getters, setters, and toString implementation. And it, again, makes for an inheritance hierarchy that, in my opinion, isn't a proper inheritance hierarchy. It's, again, in my opinion, some accidental complexity that has crept into our project. So we'll remove that. But before we do so, I would like to also point one more thing. This superclass doesn't allow us to name things as they should be named. Because is there something like a name for a pet type? I doubt it. In my opinion, this should be named type or a species, definitely not the name of the pet type. So let's remove the named entity class, again executing the push members down refactoring. Okay, so right now we have all of the objects in our model covered. We more or less know what the project is all about, so let's start making it easier for the ones that are to come after us to discover what this project is all about. So we will start creating some contexts, or rather exposing them. And the first context that comes to my mind is the visit context. So let's start with executing tests, because we have done a few things. And let's move classes related to the visit context into the visit package. And if we do so and execute the test suite once again, it will fail, as far as I remember. Yeah, it fails. And it fails because it's unable to load the application context. So the only thing that we have done, we have just changed the package for an entity and a repository, and something blows up. As you can probably can tell, this is related to the configuration, and we can look for the configuration in the infrastructure config package. And we won't go into this package because if you're using Spring, you can probably tell that it's related to some kind of a component scan. So let's just search for it. And we have a component scan here, not the one that we are looking for because we haven't touched services yet, but we will do so. So let's fix it. And we haven't solved our problem, so let's search for repositories, for example. And yeah, we have an enabled JPA repositories annotation, so let's fix our problem. Right now, our repositories are not only based in domain repository package, but also in other packages within the domain. So let's fix that, and let's rerun the tests. And they should work. Yeah, they do. Okay, so we have extracted some or moved some classes into visit context, but we are not done yet with this. What's more we have to do, we have to split our clinic service and extract visit-related service from it. We will cheat a bit by misusing the push members down refactoring this time. We will, since it's a delegate to the database, not a proper service, then our IDE will help us a lot. It will say what should we move to the visit context. So let's do that. Let's name our class visit service. Of course, in a visit package. And we have to fix few things because we have misused this refactoring, so we won't be extending any class. This will be a Spring service. We won't use that constructor, so let's inject our dependencies. And if we try to run our test, the project won't compile. It won't compile because we haven't we have moved some methods, but we haven't told any classes using them that they have changed place. So let's fix that. We're in the visit controller, and the save visit method is not longer in the clinic service. It's in a visit service. So let's inject it into controller. And the same thing will happen in tests. And in tests, I will do something horrible. We're really limited in time. We have only 40 minutes. Of course, this also happens in our projects. I will do this horrible thing and won't modularize the tests. But in real projects, you really have to pay as much attention to tests as you do to production code. So right now, we want to modularize those tests. We want to do the same refactoring as we do to production code. We will just inject the missing dependencies. But one thing that I would like you to pay attention to is how splitting those tests will reveal some smells in your project. Because if you haven't, if we missed the thing that we had to inject two services into controller, then at least those tests tell us that there's something going on here. Because in order to add a new visit for a test, we have to use two distinct services from two distinct contexts. And if time allows, we will do so at the end of the presentation. So right now, let's just add a to-do. Let's do the bad thing. Let's inject the missing service. Let's rerun the tests. They should pass. And in the meantime, do you see something bad with what I have highlighted? Is there something that we can improve that's bad with this context? Well, the thing that is bad is that we're exposing the persistent state of our context to everyone. We're making it global, publicly available. And right now, due to this approach to packaging, we can encapsulate it. We can hide it behind the service. We can start protecting some invariants. So by simply removing the public keyword here, we're gaining control of our persistent state. And we have extracted one context, and I would say it was easy, so let's continue, let's do the same thing. And the other context that I see here is a veterinarian context. So let's introduce it. Let's move all the vet-related classes to domain vet package. And let's do the same with the service. Let's use the push members down refactoring. And again, our IDE is helping us a lot. So once more, vet service in a vet package. Once again, let's fix some things due to the misuse of this refactoring. And let's auto-wire the dependencies. And again, we have to fix the implementation and fix the tests and remove some stuff from the clinic service. Okay, once more. And right now we're in the vet controller, and here we don't have to inject another service there. We can do a simple type migration. So let's do that. Vet service. Let's also fix the name and the parameters. And in tests, again, we will do the horrible thing, but still, if we were to modularize those tests as we do for the production code, still some smells are being revealed. Because if you think about verifying whether a veterinarian has certain specialties, do you care whether the dentistry is being returned first or the surgery? Does it even matter? Or the only thing that matters is whether this veterinarian has a dentistry and surgery specialty? In my opinion, the order of those is not relevant. So again, we have a smell revealed here. If time allows, we will talk about it. But right now, let's inject our vet service. Yeah, vet service. And we have another context extracted. And what we're left with are some objects that are highly coupled to each other. And in my opinion, they make for one context. But how do we name it? If we were to look for a dominant object there for some kind of a root, that would definitely be an owner, since the owner has relationship to all of the pets he owns. But we won't call this context an owner context. We will call it a client context because both the owner and the pets are the clients of our pet clinic. So let's move it to client context. We can also fix the name of the clinic service. It's no longer a clinic service, it's a client service. We, of course, should also protect all the interfaces related to our repositories, so let's hide them as well. And what we have done is we have split our domain into 3 contexts. And there is one thing that is still missing from the picture, in my opinion. I know what this project is all about, but I don't know how to run it, where the entrance to this project is. And if you have developed web applications in Spring back in the days, then you probably know that in a web app, in a web-inf, you will have an XML file where there will be context configuration location, but it's not so visible as we would like it to be. So let's fix it as well. It's in a root application context config, so let's go there. Let's move this class to the main package of our application, to the pet clinic package. And let's also fix the name. Let's name it Pet Clinic Web App. And let's finish with that and start from the beginning. So let's compare what we have now with what we have started with. So once again, taking the role of a new developer in the project, let's see how can we tell what this project is all about. So what we have here is a pet clinic project, probably a project that is responsible for managing some aspect of a pet clinic, but let's verify it. And this project is a web application that allows our clients to book visits to veterinarians. No doubts about it. And if you remember how we struggled to tell what the specialty object is all about, right now it's so obvious due to the packaging that we have applied. Right now, from the context that this class resides in and from its name, we instantly can tell that the specialty is a specialty of a veterinarian. And in my opinion, we have done a lot. We haven't put a lot of energy into it, but we have gained a few things. First of all, the barrier of entrance to this project is really lower from the previous approach. Also, it's easier to maintain, it's easier to develop such a project, to work on it. At least this is my opinion. And how have we done it? What we were doing, what rules were we following. I haven't told you that in the beginning, but I was following only the 4 super simple rules that you already know. Maybe you haven't thought about some of them in that context, so let me talk about them. The first rule that I have followed was eliminating accidental complexity from the project. Like, for example, removing the person class that introduced the inheritance hierarchy that wasn't a proper inheritance hierarchy. The other thing that I have followed was the single responsibility principle rule, but not in the context of a class method implementation, the single responsibility principle on the context level. Right now we have 3 contexts, and each one of those is responsible for managing only one aspect of this pet clinic application. Like the visit, it's only responsible for things related to booking visits, to maybe looking at the history of those. Only visits are the responsibility of this context. The third rule that I have followed was encapsulation, and not hiding fields behind getters and setters, which in my opinion isn't an encapsulation. We have encapsulated the persistent state of our context. We have encapsulated the decision that we will store visits in the database. So we are encapsulating the decisions, the things that are not relevant to the outside world, things that are relevant only to the context that we are implementing. And the last rule that we have followed was high cohesion, low coupling. Right now, in the visit context, for example, we have only classes that are highly cohesive to each other and are loosely coupled to all the other contexts. In the beginning, what we had was the opposite. Like, for example, model. Model was just a bug for entities. So what we had there was a bunch of classes that were not, most of the case, were not necessarily related to each other. So they were loosely cohesive, but all the things were highly coupled to each other, like services were coupled to repositories and to model. Repositories were coupled to model. Right now, we have a proper high cohesion, low coupling rule application. And how are we with time? We still have a few minutes. Do you have any questions, or shall we go with to-dos? Yeah? Yeah, of course, every decision has its pros and cons. We're not able to easily switch the implementation of the repositories, for example, but how often do we do that? Is there a bigger chance to change the implementation of our repositories or to requirements for our product to change? I would say that it's more probable that the requirements will change. So right now, if requirements change, like for example, you will have to change something related to the way visits are booked, then you go directly to the domain visit package, and this is the only place that you will touch. In the previous approach, you will touch half of the code base. You will we had 6 or 7 packages there. You would definitely have to, you would probably have to touch the model package, the repository package, the service package, well, maybe the web package. Right now in the life cycle of our project, it might be a good time to think about doing the same thing with web package. Maybe it's a good approach or not. We have to think about it. But going back to the question, you know where to look for the places that you have to change due to the requirements change. If there's a bug in your code, and this bug is related to booking visits, you instantly know where to look for it. And you have here just a couple of classes. You don't have to touch half of the packages of your application. If you want to remove something, if you stop managing in your software things related to veterinarians, then you just remove the whole context. If you don't have such context, well, it's not a super easy job. You have to look at all the connections between all the classes. Right now, you only have to take a look at what are the connections to the vet context and connections from it. No, from it you even don't have to bother with. Does it answer your question? Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, so let's for a second look at the to-dos. So this approach looks way better than from what we have started with, but it's not perfect. And one of the smells that we have seen was the necessity of injecting two contexts, of using services from two contexts within one test. And this is a smell telling us that those contexts are too coupled to each other. And if we take a look at the implementation, we have a bidirectional, what's going on? Okay, we have a bidirectional relationship between a pet that knows about all of its visits, and from a visit to the pet that it was booked for. So the bidirectional relationship, plain evil, it introduces some performance cost, but never mind that. It makes for a lot of possibilities for introducing bugs. And it also makes you think about it. You have to keep it in your head. You have to remember about this relationship. You shouldn't have bidirectional relationships, and definitely not between separate contexts. So in order to fix it, I would remove all of the knowledge about visits from the client context and keep all the things related to visits only within the visit context. So we would have here a method in a visit service, and we would book visits only through this visit service. If we were to look for a history of visits, we would have this service or another visit history service directly in the visit context, not anywhere else. So all the things related to visits would be in the domain visit package. And the other smell that we have discovered was the necessity to check for the specialties in order. And if we take a look at the implementation returns a list of specialties, and specialties are based entities, so they have an identity. And do we care about an identity in case of specialty? I doubt it. I'm not interested in knowing whether the surgeon's specialty has an ID of 1, 7, 200, whatever else. I'm only interested about whether it is a surgeon's specialty. The identity of it doesn't matter to me. It shouldn't matter anywhere. So what we should do here, we should change this entity into the value object. This value object might be persisted into the database, but it shouldn't rely on the identity. So we could make the name of this specialty, again, the naming that was that we had to follow due to this artificial inheritance hierarchy, if you remember the named entity. So we can make this name a unique primary key in our database if we're using the relational database. So we shouldn't make everything an entity. We should think whether we are interested in following the life cycle of that object. In this case, there's no life cycle. There is a specialty, and it doesn't change through the life cycle of the project. We don't care about its identity, so it's a plain value object. It's just persisted in the database. Okay, and this is all the material that I have prepared for today. If you have any questions, I am open for it. And if you don't have one, I wish you projects that are more looking like the approach that we see right now than the approach that we have started with. And if you have to do such refactorings, remember, those are only 4 simple rules. Removing accidental complexity, following the single responsibility principle, following the high cohesion, low coupling, and applying proper encapsulation to your context. So are there any questions? Okay, so I wish you the great rest of the conference. Thank you for your attention.